going to talk to you for a few minutes, all right? And then you can do what you want with it. Appreciate my new Bible. I can see the words. I want you to look at your neighbor and say these words to your neighbor. God's got a plan. And He's going to fulfill it with you. Look at your neighbor and say, with you. Did anybody come to church tonight because you were bored? Did anybody come to church because you need God to do something for you because you got yourself in trouble? Did you show up tonight because you need God to give you a miracle because you monkeyed something up? When you woke up this morning, what was the first thing on your mind? You know what I do? It was Tuesday, it's prayer meeting. Wednesday, we visit somewhere if we want to. Thursday, church tonight. The old folk used to sing a song, he's the first thing that, when I rise in the morning, he's the first thing on my mind. And the last thing on my mind when I lay down. He's just that precious. I want to talk about something. Remember, I won't be with you Sunday morning, but Sunday night I will. Say this after me. What lies before me and what lies behind me is an indication of what lies within me. Life is full of chances. David is a man that, he's got issues, he's got problems. But David is a warrior. Somebody said amen. I think we could all agree with that, don't you? David has some men that is following him, and it's not just a handful of men. It's 600 men that has vowed to go wherever David deemed that he needed to go and to be, and to do whatever David deemed that needed to be done. These men are men that were willing to fight for everything they believed in. And these men also were willing to lay down their life for what David believed in. Somebody say that's a good follower. You have a group of men that is military men, that's full of courage, that follows David. And they go into war, and they do something that I felt at liberty this evening to say to you, that I feel like that the church in general and the world, it's not pinpointing the world out or just the church out, but it is a proven fact, statistics and studies prove it. What I'm about to tell you is the God's honest truth. David and his 600 men was in war, and they did something that probably the majority of us have done, or we have the potential to do it. And maybe some of us has done it and we have learned from it. And that was David and 600 men leaving Ziklag to go to war, leaving their children and their wives unprotected by any men that is to be the priest of their home. Every tent had a light. Every tent had respect. Every family respected each family. They all got along. They all knew their goal and where they were headed. It reminds me of a story of a young man that saw an old traveler sitting under a tree. He just joined himself to the old traveler. He had a backpack. And he asked this traveler, he was an old gentleman, he said, "Where are you going?" The traveler said, "I have no clue where this road will lead me." The young man is staring into a wrinkled face, a tattered skin, just strong enough to get to his next city, if you will. The little young man is actually just kind of distraught because he don't understand how could a man say that, he doesn't have a direction. Are you with me this evening? Somebody say, "I'm with you." All right. This young man says to him, "How is it that you could travel and not have a destination?" And the old man replies to the young man and says to him, "You have a lot to learn." Stay with me. He says to him, "It's not the destination." He said, "Young man, when I get to my destination, how I'll know that it is my place to be is, number one, I'll have peace about it. Number two, I will be very comfortable and provision will be made." He says, but one thing that you have to learn at a young age is that it's not the destination that I'm really seeking for. He said, it's the journey between here and the destination that causes me to enjoy life. And so the young man is still conversing with the older traveler under the tree, and he continues to say to the young man, one thing that you need to understand is the journey between where you are now, young man, and the journey that you're going to take to your destination. You can become so focused on your destination until you have bypassed all the joys of life just into the journey. And so the young man walks away and realizes that every day is a beautiful day. And every city is a beautiful city. And every highway is a beautiful highway. And the birds and the sunset is really beautiful. And the things that God has created is something to gaze upon. And so he realizes that if he's going to learn anything, he has to learn that it's not the destination, it's the journey. And so David and his men takes this journey, and leaving the men, the young men and young girls and the wives unattended by someone that is able to protect them. I correlated this because I think that it is wise that us older men teach the younger men the value of the journey between where they are and where they're headed. Because if you live life just for your destination, you will forget about all the values of the journey, and life will just simply become boring, and then you wake up and then you're 51 years old. Are you hearing me? They done something that probably every one of us has done, and that is simply leave our children unattended and unprotected in some way, somehow. 72 hours is passing. There is a group of people that is coming in to Ziklag. They are called Amalekites. Now, the Amalekites have these Egyptian servants that serve them, and they are runners and they're messengers, and they do what they're supposed to, and they're very powerful young men. While David has left his children, all of his men have left their children unattended, their wives unattended. David is now married to 2 women. And Abigail is one of the beautiful women that the Bible talks about. There's 2 Abigails, and this one, her husband has passed. David has married her, and she's a beautiful woman. And so David has a child by her. They have taken David's 2 women. They have taken David's sons. David doesn't know that the Amalekites has come in and invaded them and took away their wives and their children, because they're easy prey when they're unattended and unprotected. Y'all can sleep on me if you want to. It's okay. I'm going to preach it by myself. David can't see what's going on in Ziklag, nor the 600 men, because they're making war. They defeat the Philistines, and they are coming back, and they find that right across the horizon is smoke. The stench of tents being burned. The wind that's blowing, and the stench of smoke is coming their way. But they still don't realize what's going on, because in their mind, they're thinking that they have left for war, and their children is still safe, and their wives are still in harmony with the children. What could possibly go wrong? David and his men are rejoicing because they have won the war. They carry the medal. They carry the trophy. They're high-fiving, and they're willing to get back to see their sons and daughters and their children, and they just don't know that the Amalekites have come in and struck matches, and they burned the whole city of Ziklag and have held captive and taken away every woman and every child and every son, every daughter, every cousin, every whatever. They are all gone, but now David has left them unattended. David has left them unprotected. They are no army without somebody being the man of the house. Your house, ladies and gentlemen, is easy prey when there's no priesthood in the home. Are you hearing me tonight? You're easy prey when a man doesn't have the guts enough to stand up in his house and say, for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Are you with me? How many children is crying, holding on to their sibling, wondering what is going to happen next, because the imaginations in their little brain is wondering if they don't have enough respect to not burn our city down and take away what we have and take all of our spoil, then surely they have no respect for my life. So mamas and holding their children, and they're crying and holding on to one another. Some is possibly saying, where is my daddy at? What would you do if your child was in trouble and all you could hear was your baby saying, Daddy, help me? Or Mama, would you help me? Real daddy, something will rise from his feet all the way through the top of his head. And you will do anything, whatever it costs, to be sure that the little voice on the other end of the phone is okay after they have called for help for dad. Oh, you heard me. I'm telling you, daddies have sat in boats before and watched their little boys be sucked underwater in the South. And their little boys are screaming, "Help me, Dad!" And he can't do anything because he knows that if he gets in, he's going down too. They have neglected all of the precautions of what you need to protect your family. And so they didn't go to the lake with, or the river with, life jackets. Are you hearing me tonight? Are you hearing me? I'm trying to help somebody tonight. It's nothing like walking through Children's Hospital and watching little boys and little girls walk in hold wagons or being carried in wagons with IVs in their arms, and you don't know their story. But if you could hear their story as passing by, many times I've been in the hospital, you'll know that some of those babies are eaten up with cancer. And there's nothing nobody can do. One little girl looked at her dad and said, "Dad, am I really going to die?" She was 6 years old. "Am I really going to die?" And then she looks at her dad in the face with tears running down her face and says, "Dad, I'm not going to die, am I?" And he didn't have the guts to tell her that his baby only had months to live. You see how important children are. And so David, was high-fiving and coming back to Ziklag. There's nothing left. I just got to talk to you, okay? There's nothing left in Ziklag. I feel it tonight. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to go take my seat tonight. And so now they begin to look at something's different when they start to get into the outskirts of Ziklag. There's little bitty pieces of paper. There's little papyrus, a little this and a little that. I wonder why somebody didn't clean the yard. Somebody must have went on a trip, because they've left little teddy bears and they've left little things that they held on so dear, little blankets, tears and rips. What's going on? And so when they finally get into, y'all with me tonight? Get into Ziklag, they realized that what they were smelling was their own personal assets. Are you hearing what I'm saying tonight? They realized that everything that they have worked hard for is now burned to the ground. They have no place to sit down with their children and burn a candle and talk about the war with their wife. There's nobody going to make a pot of coffee. Nobody can play a card game. Nobody is going to be able to keep the rain off of their head because their houses is burned. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying today? And so now there's something a little bit more valuable than the lampstand, the lampstand and the oil and the food and the victuals. They took all of that, and there's something more valuable. Hear me now. Than the biggest and the prettiest tent that's in that's in that area. They don't even know which one's the prettiest and the biggest, but it really doesn't matter, because while some dad is walking around screaming for their children and calling them by name, "Where are you? Don't play games. What's going on?" And they're calling for their wife, and nobody is answering, because the Amalekites have taken away everything. And if David could have just said one thing, if we would have just left somebody here that would fight for our family and fight for our children and fight for what that belongs to us, maybe our family would have been preserved, and maybe they would have been protected. Maybe if we would have just left somebody here to protect them, to pray over them, to give them direction, maybe we wouldn't have this devastation. Somebody say, "I'm with you tonight." Somebody say, "I'm with you tonight." And now David gets on the ground. David doesn't know what to do. David is responsible, because now, for just several hours, the men has cried so hard. The Bible said that they cried so hard till there was nothing left within them. Oh, you better hear me tonight. You better hear me. There was nothing left in them. "David, what are we going to do? Now 600 men has been following you, and we come home to nothing. And the most valuable asset of our life is our wife and our children." Are you hearing what I'm saying tonight? And all of a sudden, David starts hearing something chirping on the side. It's not a bird because the smoke has driven that away. It's not somebody coming by with a Red Cross Blue Shield to find out what they could have, what they needed because they've had a burnout. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying today? But he heard some familiar voices on the side, and they were talking to one another. And this is what they were saying. I wish to God I could pick this stone up and smash David in the head. And the Bible said that they took counsel. Hear me now. And they took counsel with one another. And the Bible said they said among themselves, why don't we just take the stones and get rid of David? It's all David's fault because our children, our sons and our daughters and our wives are gone. Y'all still with me tonight? Somebody said, I'm still with you tonight. Don't leave me by myself, okay? And all of a sudden, David says, wait a minute, I'm going to die here. I know it's my fault. And David is so sad that his wives are gone and their wives are gone and their sons and daughters is gone. Man, the city is just like it's not what it used to be. There's no running, there's no playing, there's no screaming, there's no crying, there's no mother giving birth, there's nothing here. But then the Bible said, you ready for this? That David stood up and he said, there's only one thing to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to say. Men, I don't know what to tell you. You hear me? And David said, I don't know where they are. All I know is I see a little trail going this way. I don't know. But David, the Bible said, after hearing those men say, I just wish I could kill him, he was so depressed. David stood to his feet. Hear me? And the Bible said, he encouraged himself in the Lord. All he could do was say, I may have made a mistake. I didn't know it was going to happen. But the Lord is my shepherd. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth them out of them all. When my enemy rose against me, I would have been consumed by the enemy if it had not been for the Lord on my side. If he held me in his bosom and protected me from the spears and swords of Saul, surely he will make a way for my family. You're not hearing me tonight. And David says, there's not but one thing to do. That's follow the trail. He calls for a man by the name of Abiathar. Hear me tonight. Abiathar is not a man that's familiar with a sword, but yet he has one. Abiathar is not a man that's very familiar with a sling. David, that's your job. Abiathar doesn't know the art of warfare in the physicality world. But if you hinder him and push Abiathar in the corner, there's another art that he's very good at. And that art is he knows how to seek the face of God. You're not hearing me tonight. Abiathar is not just someone that's born from some illegitimate mama and daddy. Abiathar is the one that ran for his life. When Saul took his daddy Ahimelech and 85 preachers in the church and slayed them with a sword, and Abiathar was the one that saw what was coming his way, and Abiathar ran for his life because he was a young man. Abiathar, it's not your destiny. It's your journey. And Abiathar is standing there, and David says, oh, Abiathar, how well it is for you to be here. Abiathar, I don't know where to go. I don't know if God wants us to pursue or not pursue. I don't know what God's thinking, but Abiathar, would you do me a favor? I know you're still grieving over your dad and your family that has been hewn in pieces, but Abiathar, you have to stand up today, and you have to be a preacher today. Hear me today when I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. Abiathar says, sir, what do you want me to do? He says, you know, there's something here that the devil couldn't take. What is that? Go fetch me the ephod. He grabbed the ephod. David put it on himself. Probably shouldn't have never did that, but David did it anyway. Are y'all ready for this? That was for the preachers to wear, not David. But David was a king, and he was anointed, so it was okay. David can't hear from God like Abiathar can. And David says, okay. Let me tell you, can I take you there for a second? Desperation will make you do some serious stuff when you need an answer from God. Somebody give me 10 minutes tonight, okay? And you that are watching live, don't you move. You got to hear what I got to say. When you're in desperation, hear me tonight. When you're in desperation, you will pray a prayer that you didn't pray last week, that you've never prayed in the history of your lifetime. Are you hearing what I'm saying? When you're in desperation, you will wear and put on anything that's available as long as you can get a hold of God and hear what God has to say. Because your family and your children and your wife is in jeopardy because God needs us to be preachers and be priests of our home. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And so he says, okay, God, what do you want me to do about my family? God has already got it worked out. This is what hit me like a ton of bricks. And God says, he hears David when David says, okay, do you want me to pursue? Because there's something inside of me. I got to help my family back. You better hear me tonight. I got to have my children back. I got to have my wives back. Look at all of these men. And God sees David in his desperation. And God is already working. Somebody say, God's already working. I'm going to prove it to you, okay? Can I prove it to you? God says to David, like I feel that he's telling me to tell this congregation and those that are watching live and those that will watch later. He is telling you the same thing that he told David. Get up, David, and pursue. And thou shalt recover all without fail. You better hear me now. And that's all David needed to hear. He pulls it off and gives it back to Abiathar. He looks at men and he says, 200 of you can't go, but 4 of you can. 200 of you is so wore out you can't cross Besor a river. But I'm going to take you because all I know is go this way. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? And on their way to Besor, you hear me? Here he goes. I don't know where they are. All I know is they're in this area. Y'all hear what I'm saying? So David happens to spread his men out in the wilderness. Give me 8 minutes, okay? He spreads his men out in the wilderness. All of a sudden, somebody comes running to David. David, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't know where their family is at. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Because it's amazing that when the Amalekites come in and took all of their children, sons and daughters, and all of their stuff, and then burned the tents down in the city, and then took their wives, that the power of God was already messing around in the congregation of the Amalekites. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? It's because God's big enough to look at what's going on in Ziklag and still look what's going on over here in the area of the Amalekites. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? He's God enough to work both ends at the same time. And what he allowed to happen, here we go now, what God allowed to happen, he was looking at all of those men now, hear me now, all of those Egyptian men that were servants, and he scoped every one of them out, and he pinpointed one out, and he let a sickness come upon him. A sickness that even his master left him in the wilderness, in the field, to die and take his last breath. But it was a God thing. David! We got a dying man here. David said, get me some water, get me some bread, get me a cake of figs. I want you to hand it over to him and let him eat. And the Bible said that when he eat it, life come back to his body. And David said, young man, stand up. He stood up and he said, where did you come from? And he said, oh, you won't believe this, sir. He said, I am a servant. I'm an Egyptian servant. And I'm a servant to the Amalekites. And you won't believe, just yesterday, I followed them through. And we burned a city down by the name of Ziklag. And sir, my master saw that I was sick yesterday and told all the men in my platoon, leave him there. Sir, David said, could you tell me where, I'm almost done, where they are? Oh, yeah. Ready for this? I can tell you where the destination is, but see, God put somebody in the journey. You see what I'm saying? And he looked up at David. He said, oh, no, I'm not going with you, because you'll tell my master that I told you where they were. And David said, I will not. You know what he said? We took all the stuff. We burnt the city down. We took the wife, the children. Oh, yeah, I know. And David said, I promise you, if you'll tell me where they at, take me to them, you can stay with me. And I won't tell nobody, you shall live. And all of a sudden, David said, men, follow the servant. And David went down, and for almost 24 hours, from twilight all the way around the clock to the evening of the next day, David, Abiathar, and 400 men killed almost every Amalekite. And all of a sudden, here come little arms. Daddy. Here come wives. Oh, I thought we were going to die. We'd never see you again. And all these children are in reunion with their family once again. And David gets on his knees and he hugs those babies, hugs his wives, and he says, God said, we shall recover all without fail. And then they got to looking around after they slaughtered everybody, because 400 men got on camels and left. Bunch of cowards. And there was all of their little blankets and little bears and all the little stuff from their tents. And the Bible said David got it all, and he recovered all, and he came back. Somebody's got to rebuild Ziklag. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? So in closing, how many times have we become so busy that we have left our children unattended and unprotected, and the enemy has snuck in and devoured them? But the Lord is saying, if you'll get up, if you'll go after, pursue, you shall recover. Oh, that's not Micah 1:1. That's the Bible. I'm giving you a word tonight. That's Bible. You will recover all without fail. There's a new law called Sammy's Law. There's 3 pieces of legislation right now. trying to fix it and have accomplished a good bit to stop the traffic of our children becoming friends with people on social media that is introducing and influencing them to become what they call an observer. Snapchat is the leading #1 social platform that is allowing our children to become observers. So the FDA, about a year ago today, has been putting into place that there is no way that children can have free access to social media without their parents being some way connected at all times. Some things is working, some things is not. They call our children observers. And the observers is our mid-teens and a little lower, and some a little higher. Becomes observers to those that are on Snapchat and any other social platform that has potential to do drugs, sell drugs, and they call our children observers. In the tabloid, it is said the next step from an observer is our children become a buyer. It's an influence that is running so rapid, especially on Snapchat, that now our observers is becoming buyers. Now they are saying the last step is when they leave being a buyer, they become a user. They've proven that drugs and video playing games and social media platforms has the exact same effect on as drugs, alcohol, vaping, and our children get angry. They sit at tables, they scream for a phone or an iPad. The FDA says we would that parents in America would tell their children at supper time, you cannot have a device, because it has separated the family unit so far that while we are sitting, they're being entertained by other things. They have requested that parents leave their cell phones in the bedroom, and when they go to bed, they leave their phone in another room, because it has contaminated our hearts and our minds and our children. Since the Depression, I read it today, when the Depression came many, many years ago, moms and dads quit having so many kids because they refused to bring precious babies into the world in the Depression. But that's past, and now we have an all-time teen pregnancy. But for some reason in 2022 and 23, there's more abortions, more killing infants. Even after they have almost went full term, they're still trying to push all that garbage. And by the way, let me say this because I am live, HAC is against abortion. I'm telling you right now. I stand against it. That being said, there are less children being born in 2022 and 23 than it was in the days of Depression. The purpose of that is because nobody wants responsibility. Can I take you further tonight? I'm going to tell it like it is, all right? Here's my thing. If they get pregnant and they're 15, 18, 20, 21, 25 years old and they want to abort a baby, you know what that tells me? You want to be woman and man enough to do the deed, but you don't want to be woman and man enough to take care, here's the R word, the responsibilities. Because we are daddies raising our children to become more reliant on Google. Our schools is reliant on Google. It's another world teaching our children in some schools, not all schools. Are y'all with me tonight? I'm not just talking to you, okay? Because, daddies, it's our job. We're raising a generation that seems to be so entitled to everything that we have. They don't want to work anymore. They just want you to give it to them. And are y'all still with me tonight? And so, therefore, you have a generation that doesn't know how to take care of responsibilities. If the enemy can raise our children and steal our children, and I fear this with all of my heart, and perform some type of psychological mode on them that they don't know anything about responsibilities, when we're all dead and gone, this whole world will be operated off of computers, robots already. They got robots doing everything now. Less people work for Walmart, Kroger's, and some of your other areas. Chevrolet just let off 500 people. Ford just announced laying people off. Now there's a big strike. There's a lot of garbage going on in our world because the enemy knows if I can pull them into captivity and make them rely on what I can give them, then I can affect the church of the living God and take down the church. But I got news for the booger man. This is a blood-bought church, and you cannot take away the blood. Until God gets finished with the church in the earth, this message is still going to be preached. And we're still going to get people filled with the Holy Ghost. And we're still going to baptize people in Jesus' name until he says it's enough. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? And I'm going to let you stand in just a second, okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? Can I give you another one? Can I give you another one? No, you don't want me to give you another one, do you? Let's all stand on our feet. Let me say this to you. Can I ask you a question? Does your kids play church? Do they act like they're preaching? Do they act like they're singing? Do they act like they're baptizing people? Do they act like they're praying people through? Running the aisle? Dancing? Do they do that in your home? Let me give you a little heads up. Don't stop them. Because that's going to be their lifeline. Because if you stop them there and we stop them here, we're losing our kids. Dads, I feel this to tell you, including myself. You need to be the priest of your home. What's wrong, Dad, with if you can't fix something and your son or your daughter says, Dad, can you fix it? Mom, what if they ask you, Mom, can you stitch this baby doll's eye back into place? I want Whitney to come, wherever Whitney's at. I thought the rapture took place. What, Mama, what if an arm tore off one of your baby's dolls and she needed you to brought you a baby and an arm and says, Mama, can you put this back on? It's not the fact that you're going to put it back on right, but it is the fact that when you look at that baby and say, no, I can't do it, you're destroying your children. Daddy, what about putting a chain on your baby's bicycle? What about taking the training wheels off? Come on, somebody. What about building the tree house? And then we say, I don't know how to put that chain on. It's not the fact that you don't know how to put it on. It's the fact that you rejected them. You know where they get their joy at? It's not you fixing the bike, and it's not you putting the arm back on the doll. It's the fact that you took the time to try. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. I'm just being honest. I'm not saying social media is wrong, but what I am trying to propose to you is if we leave our children and our wives unattended and unprotected, Amalek's coming. The Amalekite's going to show up, going to take everything you got because you wasn't there. Dads want to know back home. I'm going to use back home. How come my home is a wreck? Well, if you wouldn't stay out all night and drink all your money up, and the FDA put it out like this: there's more marijuana in schools than in some streets in our cities. There's more access, freer access to drugs, especially vaping, all of this garbage. And what you're going to do is raise up a generation that all they know how to do is steal to make a living. Am I talking to anybody? But let's not leave our children and our homes. I just want to say to some of those men back home, some of them's dead now. This man that went to my uncle's church, my uncle pastored 50 years, preached on the radio 50 years. Got out of the military, married his wife, got a job, and they would do what every newlywed would do, was sit and laugh and talk and play and make plans on their journey of how they're going to buy this and buy that, have their own apartment and have their own car and have their children. They're going to be the biggest and the happiest family that the county has ever seen. We're going to lead and we're going to guide. Until the daddy, started catching up with some of his old buddies outside when he got out of the military. He'd work and make $300 or $400. That was good money back then. $500 a week. He'd come home, but something started changing in him. True story. He'd go out and he'd start hanging out. Tell his wife I'd be home at 8 o'clock. He'd show up at 8 o'clock. After a while, it was 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. After a month, still had no apartment. Finally, they got an apartment. They had no couch, no chair, no bed. Stove, refrigerator, just a very little. I'm done tonight, okay? And one night, they made plans to go that next day when he got paid to buy their couch and sofa and a bed. He come home with $4,000. He never showed up for home. He went out with his buddies, blew every bit of that money, and then took a quarter, it was a dime then, put it in a payphone and called his wife and said, I'm sorry. I have spent all of our money. Is that what you want to do? This is serious stuff tonight. And she sat on the floor and she cried. She said, this is never going to work. Am I talking to anybody? Ain't he good?
All the time.
Because he would do whatever it takes to save you. And now he's given us a charge tonight. I'm not saying go home and kick something out of the house. I'm just saying, mamas, you're the priest of some of your homes. I'm proud of you. Daddies, remember, that baby of wine will want a bottle today. Tomorrow, it'll want driver's license and a car. Ask me, I know. Y'all feel me tonight? Anybody mad? I didn't mean to hold you to 8:22, but you that are watching live, you can be dismissed if you want to be dismissed. But I can tell you right now, I want to make a living for my family. My door's unlocked, and my girls can come in my house anytime, and they do. and they get whatever's in my house. Because when I go to look for peanut butter, it ain't there. I can go look in their cabinets, and there it is. But my house is open to my children. That make any sense? Because one day I won't be here. And I want them to open their homes up like I opened my home up. Because y'all remember the old folk, you go to the kitchen, you get a belt. You don't go to the kitchen and get anything without asking. Anybody remember those days? I still believe in kids asking, except grandkids. They don't have to ask. I have to ask them. Ain't God good? Do you love your children? Do you love your children? Can I say one more thing? Y'all remember in the little building when I put all the babies on one side, and I was acting like an evil man, the forces of hell trying to pull those children. Y'all remember that years ago? And I have mamas and daddies in this church right now, tonight, that grabbed their children by the arm and jerked their children out of my hands and said, "You can't have my kids." And now some of them are still here, and they're becoming preachers and preachers' wives. But I'm sorry to report to you, there were some that did it that didn't hold up their bargain. They're all gone. Isn't God good? If you're upset at me, you'll get over it. Daddies, it's time. It's time. Brother Garcia used to say something years ago. I'm done. I promise I'm done. He said, "Brother Pullins, if I lose my family and save the church, I've lost it all." What he said. And I have to agree with him. Families first. I need to be a priest of my home. So we're going to sing this song tonight. Raggedy Ann Doll. Sing it, just sing it. You sing it a cappella, I don't care. If you know this song, sing this tonight. You don't know how to play that song? And while they're getting ready to sing that, this is what we're going to do. Remember, next Saturday at 12 o'clock is the funeral. Is that right, sister? Next Saturday. Next Saturday. Yeah. At 12. 10's viewing. 12 is church. I didn't mean to hold you so long. I'm sorry for